How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
Today on CityCast Denver, it's been called an abandoned water slide, a bridge to nowhere, a response to a problem that does not exist. Governor Jared Polis' nearly $30 million elevated walkway proposed for the front steps of the Capitol has received a lot of criticism lately, including from me right here on this show, and 9 News anchor Kyle Clark, who I spoke with last week. But there are people out there who think it's a great idea, and 2 of them are on today to defend the big bridge. Today is Monday, June 30th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Mo Graham, welcome back to CityCast Denver.
Thank you, Bree, for having me.
And Skylar McKinley, hello and welcome back too.
Always a hoot.
So last week, I talked to Kyle Clark of 9 News about why he feels so strongly that Governor Polis should not be allowed to build this giant pedestrian bridge in Civic Center Park. He and I were very snarky about it and speculated about why the only person 9 News could find to speak in favor of the bridge was an artist paid to work on the project. I found out that artist was you. And you and I are very good friends. So I think I just wanted to get that out for listeners to understand.
Yeah.
We know each other very well.
It's true.
So before we get started, Mo, I would love to clear it up. How did you get involved with this project?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I want to start by saying I'm a visual artist, and as sort of a side and passion project, I do a lot of consulting work for different organizations and institutions who are interested in thoughtful, human-centered community engagement work, especially as it relates to the arts. And so I have a really great privilege that a lot of people don't always get to experience, where I get to pick and choose what kind of work that I do. And when this project was presented to me by the Deputy Chief of Staff to the governor, I got really excited because I thought, oh, cool, a fun project where we get to revitalize a part of the city that, as it stands right now, could use some tenderness and some love, and also support 20 artists and potentially even create opportunities for artists to be able to expand their proposal or their portfolios and even bolster the arts economy here in the city, which at a time like right now feels really crucial.
Yeah, I've talked to many artists about loss of grant opportunities and things like that. So just for the context of where artists may be at this moment, what exactly is your role in the project right now?
I oversee the public arts process. So everything from the selection to supporting artists who were selected to helping them engage with the design team and in their design and production process, and then even installation and after. So I'm acting as sort of the artist liaison and project manager for the public arts portion of this project.
How do you feel about the way you have been characterized in this debate so far?
I think it's unfortunate. And this is one of those conversations where it really is a lesson in media literacy. And I just want to start by saying thank you to you, Bree, because as journalists, I think it's really important that you're offering people information so that they can make thoughtful and informed decisions for themselves. And I think media coverage so far has done a few things. And one of those things is, one, robbing us of a proper rollout. We had plans to be able to share things, but we wanted to make sure we had artists that we could share and celebrate. We wanted to make sure that all of our design workshops had been complete so we could give people answers to questions that are still being asked and worked through. So we didn't get a chance to do that. And then also, I think it's irresponsible for media coverage to make decisions about a project in advance and then convince people of their opinion as opposed to trusting that humans have their own intelligence and can make up their own minds. Instead, they're just sort of saying what people should believe. And the media coverage so far, the decision has been that it's negative. And I just think that's a missed opportunity. And I know we have a lot to talk about in this process, but there are so many other positives to this project that I think haven't been able to be talked about because the decision was made.
Well, Governor Polis was the one that revealed the renderings, right? And so nothing was leaked. Like he kind of rolled it out himself.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. And I think that comes from a place of responsibility. So it wasn't that it was leaked, but I think that there was still more of a rollout that we wanted to be able to do. And I think there was just sort of this like jump and bandwagon of negativity. And that feels like a missed opportunity. But you also, I think with any project this big, and I think this is also an important note to make, is any project this big, there's going to be people who say no. And unfortunately, the negative response is going to be the squeaky wheel. And that's going to be what gets pushed in the narrative that often gets pushed the most. And so, for example, like Chicago's Bean, people hated that with the ad idea. And then now it's like the crown jewel of Chicago and people love it and they love to take their selfies there. And now it's become this really special thing. So I also recognize that that's a part of this as well.
Skylar, you reached out to me after the interview I did with Kyle because you said you like this bridge too.
I think this is a brilliant public works project that we need to have a lot more of, and actually harkens back to the original Civic Center Park. If you go back to 1908, you had all these business interests saying, you can't build a park here. It's going to be bad for business. It's going to interrupt everything. It's going to ruin everything. We built the park and we cherish the park. If we look at that space right now, if you go to Lincoln Veterans Park, you rarely do. It's really tough to get to the Capitol. I go to the Capitol every day. There's no way to access that space. There's not a lot of public ground for people to enjoy the outdoor of the Capitol unless they're protesting. There aren't a lot of places to sit. And we have this underutilized park that's sort of divided by this insanely busy highway, right? So I love this project. I like this proposal as a function of placemaking. We have this civic center gem that needs to be activated. This is an elegant way to do it. And I would say it's not a new idea. In the first place, Colorado just really hates bridges. You might remember there was a bridge proposal, a beautiful bridge over Pena Boulevard for the A-line. Everyone's like, we're not building that bridge. In 2006, Daniel Libeskind had a beautiful, beautiful, world-changing proposition to build a very similar pedestrian centerpiece gem across Civic Center Park linked to the Capitol. Everybody shot it down. We don't take these bold choices when it comes to these public infrastructure processes in Colorado. And if you go through the great history of the United States, like the Bean, but also dating back to Frederick Law Olmsted and the City Beautiful movement, it's always been these bold infrastructure choices that are controversial and then become beloved. And I think that's what we're talking about here. Now, to be clear, I'm not in the tank. I'm not being paid for this.
That's my next question is, do you have involvement in this project?
I have no formal involvement other than working broadly in mobility and working broadly in civic life. Look, if I had my druthers, we would have one bridge and it would go from the Oak Creek Tavern to Pete's Satire Lounge, right? But that's my perspective.
Your bar that you own and then your bar
that I drink at.
That you drink at.
And sometimes bartend at. But no one's asking me for my perspective on that.
I mean, I was going to say, I could think of a million other places I would love to see a pedestrian bridge. I live right here off of Federal, which is an unsafe place for pedestrians. And I've dreamt of this myself. We'll get more into the parks aspect of that in a minute. But you brought up the transit part of this, and listeners will know you as the local spokesperson for AAA. And I think you had an interesting perspective on this as someone who thinks about transit. How do you see the bridge in that context specifically? Yeah,
so this is, again, goes back to this idea of placemaking. We're spending significantly as a city and as a state on the revitalization of 16th Street or the 16th Street Mall. We're spending significantly on the BRT along Colfax. This links these projects together and creates a sense of place. So the beauty of being a pedestrian is different than being in an automobile. As a pedestrian, you can walk through beautiful spaces. You can take your time. You can have connectivity between the different modalities. This is an integral part of making this actually a desirable place to be. And if this is a desirable place to be, then it makes transit more desirable. If every moment along the way you have a little bit of joy or delight, you're more inclined to make those modality choices. And by the way, taking pedestrians out of conflict with vehicles, with motorists, always makes it better for everybody. So I think this achieves that. I would say also, again, I'm the spokesman for AAA. AAA since 1922 has served Colorado. We actually owned, not far from where this project is being contemplated, the building that was the Denver Post building. That was the Auto Club's headquarters at one point. We know this area well. We're the folks who made the car happen. No one ever gets so up in arms when we say we're going to build a scenic byway, right? People say, I would love a scenic byway. Let's take the scenic byway in our car. But the second you suggest that pedestrians get a beautiful piece of infrastructure, that they get something that sort of wanders and creates a visionary moment for them to look out and say, this is a beautiful city, people say that's ridiculous. Why would they walk an extra little bit when they could just cross the street? And the point is, that's a dangerous place to cross. It's not pleasant. And pedestrians deserve a scenic byway sometimes, too.
Well, and Kyle brought up this in his reporting that he pulled crash data for the intersection and found that only one incident involving a pedestrian happened last year. And again, I think there's a lot of other intersections in this city off the top of my head that could use a safe pedestrian crossing, maybe even a bridge. Does it need to be here?
Here's what I would say. I've never seen Kyle and I know each other. We like each other. I've never seen Kyle walk that stretch of road. I walk it every day. It's rough. I work at the Capitol. I run the Denver Press Club. I walk back and forth. It is hostile. It is scary. And I'm not talking about unhoused neighbors. I'm talking about motorists, specifically people driving $100,000 trucks at high speeds. It's always perilous. So I think it's a bad argument to say, well, there's only been one serious incident. It's every near miss is terrifying and makes that a hostile, unpleasant place to be. I think the flip side of this, too, is that, yes, we could do a lot more in the way of creating dedicated pedestrian infrastructure. But if you're not doing it in your crown jewels, then it's hard to make the argument you should be doing it somewhere else. And I would posit this to all of the motorists who are upset about this pedestrian bridge. You know what I think would be even better is you took out Broadway there. Let's just close that to cars. Let's put that all. One Civic Center Park.
Our pedestrian and mobility advocates right now are hearing this and screaming for joy.
And this is what happens, though. You have all these motorists. You'll have all these motorists say, well, the bridge is ugly. We don't want the bridge. And then you propose something like, well, let's actually close the whole park and make it a Civic Center Park where people exist, where civics
do you think part
happens.
of this is the people that think it's ugly are the car drivers?
Well, I would say just as a function of how Colorado and the West grew, most people are car drivers, and most people on social media are probably car drivers. But to your excellent point, a lot of this conversation is rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of what's going on. And Kyle has contributed to this a little bit in a way that's, I think, out of character. Kyle's suggesting the governor's doing this unilaterally. It's not true. There was a vote yesterday. This is going to be referred by an 8-4 vote of the Building Development Committee that could have shot it down, right? It's going to go from there to a legislative review. History Colorado weighed in, and they said, hey, this is fine. The people who are, by the way, there and charged to protect Colorado institutions and to protect things like sightlines, they did an analysis. They said, we think this is a good workable project. So this is being reviewed. This is being vetted. This is not some governor coming in saying, I'm going to build this as a legacy project. It's an opportunity to do a big public works project related to a major anniversary of the state. We do this all the time. You might remember, or maybe not for some listeners, I-76 had a different number until 1974. And then as a function of that anniversary celebration, they renamed I-76. The state of Colorado spent millions of dollars on public works projects back then. This is what we do when we have these anniversaries. It's not out of line. It's different in the Trump era. Suddenly everything is something that a news anchor can get viewers on and raise a stink about. But these are the exact types of public works projects we always do in this way, properly vetted for these anniversaries.
And I will just say we try to do digging, and the reporting has said public money and private money, but it hasn't said what the public money is coming from. And I think that was part of Kyle's criticism, was just like, in this time when the state budget is cut, when the city budgets are being cut, when the city is laying off people, is this the right thing to be spending money on? If we knew where it came from.
I would love your perspective as an artist. I would just say briefly as a policy person, Colorado will always be in fiscal crisis. Always. This is a structural thing that we've got going on at the city level, at the state level, governments across Colorado. It is a bad argument to say we can't do anything because of the budget crisis. In fact, what makes Colorado great is we do these crazy cool things despite having one of the most borked budget systems of any state in the United States. So I don't think that's a good argument. Is, well, we don't have enough money here, so why are we spending it here? It's like that actually isn't how this works, especially on the basis of how federal funds flow, how state funds are allocated, and as with this project, when private funds are being raised.
Yeah, back in, I want to say, 2021, 2022, there was a study that was done that said in public spaces, people's perception of safety is directly related to the investments that cities place in things like public art. And so when we, to your point, when we invest in a public arts project, people's sense of pride in their spaces, people's sense of excitement and safety and engagement in their spaces dramatically changes. And so what we have an opportunity to do is to get people invested in Colorado's history in a really new and different way. We have an opportunity to create a space in that area which doesn't exist right now, where children can actually play. There's a play space integrated into this, where families can bring their kids, where you can sit and have your lunch and enjoy. When you talk about placemaking, I get so excited because when I think about the really thoughtful nature of this particular project, we're going to see a different version of community in this area that I think is really special. And also,
what do you mean by different version?
Right now, people are more likely to circumvent that area. They're more likely to walk around it because our brothers and sisters who need some love and tenderness and some additional supports, they don't always create a welcoming sense of community that make people feel fearful. And if you're in that area on a regular basis, you probably have the ability to feel comfortable interacting with some of our neighbors that exist there. But if you're new here, or if you're just coming into downtown to enjoy the area for the afternoon, you're maybe coming in from the suburbs and that's not a typical place that you might engage, you're more likely to go around that park. Whereas now we're creating an environment and a place where people can sit and meander, leisure as an act of resistance, art. And here's also what's really, really cool. We happen to exist in a state where our state funding for public arts projects isn't the absolute greatest in comparison to other states throughout the country. We are investing in up to $2 million in art for public arts in this project, where I think 8 out of the 20 selected artists, this will be their first public arts project ever. We're bolstering the arts economy by giving them an opportunity to progress their portfolios, engage in a process that advances their skill sets so that they can continue to create larger, more beautiful and more exciting parts of their portfolio and opportunities that they might not have ever had because of this. And it's a statewide artist call. So it's artists from all over the state. It's something that doesn't always happen. And we get to advocate for artists in this sense while also creating art that is interdisciplinary, meaning of different mediums, everything from 2D to large-scale sculpture, small intimate works. And all of these artists get to tell Colorado's history, the good, the bad, the unfortunate, the beautiful, and create sort of an entry point and dialogue that also supports students in their learning and understanding of our history, and any tourist and any person who might be open to discovery and continued dialogue about our history.
This episode is brought to you by the City and County of Denver Technology. Ever have a question about the city you wish you could just text and immediately have it answered? Enter Sunny, Denver's 24/7 chatbot. Sunny is a smart, AI-powered chatbot that helps you find your trash pickup day, report a broken streetlight, track street sweeping, and more. Texting 439-311. Hi. Oh, dang, she's fast. She just popped right back in there. Okay, so she can help me out with whatever. Also, if this is an emergency, please call 911. That's helpful, thank you. For potholes or potholes. So I could just put like pothole on Alameda. Those are a real problem. Pothole on Alameda. Alameda and Tejo. Oops. Autocorrect is making it really hard for me. That's all right. Sunny speaks 72 languages and responds instantly by text or WhatsApp and never makes you wait on hold. No apps, no forms, no personal info. Just help when you need it, totally anonymous. All you have to do is text HI to 439-311 or message 877-53-SUNNY on WhatsApp. Visit denvergov.org/sunnybot. Your city, just a text away. Thanks, Sunny.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
Going back to the safety piece of it, Skylar, you said you walk by this or around it or through it every day. I mean, I think we're kind of dancing around it here. There's folks that use drugs in this area. There's folks that are struggling with mental health issues in this area. There's unhoused folks in this area. And again, all of those groups do not always intersect. But can a bridge solve a social ill?
That's a great question. Folks who are in these grand public works projects or even work in development generally when it comes to housing use this, I think, very terrible term of like revitalization. And if we revitalize something, then we remove the problematic element, which are people that are equal in meaning and purpose and respect to me as a person, right? So we should never be talking about moving people out of a public space. We should be talking about bringing more people into a public space.
Yes.
But I would suggest that this is an area that probably needs to be more thoughtfully designed to make more people more comfortable going there. And as you have more people comfortable going there, you don't notice that there might be one person who's struggling, which is common in any public space, right? I don't think the reason people aren't going to Veterans Memorial Park completely is just because there are some of our neighbors having some problems. I think it's the cars. I think that it's not a pleasant place to hang out generally. It's not alone in that regard. There's a lot of places that I won't go or don't enjoy hanging out because the built infrastructure is wrong. And you know what? I don't find a lot of our unhoused neighbors there because it's unpleasant. So this is the urban core of a major American city that has great weather, that has historically, for many generations, struggled with the housing problem. Will we continue to struggle with that? Sure. Will increasing state investment in an area that belongs to the public make it more likely that more of the public's going to use it? Absolutely. This happens in cities all the time. And I would say there's a counterpoint to this too, which has sort of been left out of this entire conversation in the media. But if you go in and dig into all the documents, this is a fundamentally inclusive project in a couple different ways. You, like me, grew up here. You might remember that the buses used to drop you off on Broadway, and then you would cross through Veterans Park to the Capitol. This now creates a dedicated sort of grand entry for school groups visiting the Capitol, which is a traditional thing of how folks first get involved with places and with the Capitol, where they have a grand entrance. But more importantly, for folks with any sort of mobility challenge, the grade up Colfax, up 14th, up 13th is untenable. There's no way to really get into the Capitol. It is a hill that
Capitol Hill is on.
Correct. It's a hill that Capitol Hill is on. This, for the first time, says, hey, now we have a way where you can get into the Capitol without it being the hardest thing you're going to do all day. And for a lot of folks who are coming in and testifying, who are taking part in democracy, you're intimidated from just the moment you're walking into that hill. And this builds inclusivity there. So my point is, the more people who use a space, the less you notice people who might use that space in a way that you don't appreciate. And this sort of project creates a way where more of us can use that space. And again, I'm at the Capitol every day. I always have to sneak out to find somewhere to sit, to talk to my therapist commonly, or to eat a sack lunch. And that space doesn't exist at the Capitol. And this creates that there. So if someone like me in a business suit that day is hanging out talking to my shrink on FaceTime, hello, Dr. Richard. Then
hope you're not listening to this.
This is how spaces are built, right? Then more people gel on, and our friends who need some more support will probably find different areas where they can find it. It's all interlinked, though, right? This is, of course, part of the Mayor Johnston project to build more wraparound services for people who need them. Those probably aren't going to be delivered in front of the state capitol.
Sure. So talking about the physical, like where this is going, we've been talking a lot about its presence. And I have to say, like, the renderings of where it is, I think is I thought it was ugly. I didn't like that it comes across the park. And Kyle kind of talked about this. It disrupts, could something that could disrupt our park system, this part that's so representative of the City Beautiful movement, which you brought up. And that's a legacy in itself. Skylar, what do you think about the placement of it within something that's already historic?
I would say that we repurpose these spaces all the time. You and I spoke so many years ago when I wrote a story for Westward about Riverside Cemetery. We repurposed Mount Pleasant Cemetery and became Cheeseman Park, which is the centerpiece park, perhaps, and the favorite park of many folks in Colorado. And there were folks who said, you're going to dig up all those bodies and make a park here? That's insane. Don't do that. It's too disruptive. A city is actually not static. You don't want a city to be static. I just was in Troy, New York, which was at one point the fourth richest city in the United States. This pulled a lot of heavy minerals off of the Great Lakes. And you're walking around Troy, New York, and there's these beautiful Beaux-Arts buildings, and they had all this money, and they're vacant. And it feels like you're in The Walking Dead, right? And because it's just been static in that way. You need these parks to change over time. And if they didn't, we wouldn't have a lot of the centerpieces of the Capitol complex area we have right now, right? The Brown Palace, the Mr. Brown donated that land for it to become the Capitol. That wasn't until the state was much older, but it wasn't day one that we had that. This is how we use these spaces. Is it a beautiful historic space? Sure. These things need TLC. They need to reflect their times. If we're truly serious as a state about having this grand conversation about, we need to be pedestrian friendly, then we need to be investing in that kind of infrastructure. And I would say for all of those people who say, well, we need to go back to we need to protect the City Beautiful movement. We need to protect this gem. Okay, then get the cars the fuck out of there, man.
So to wrap this up, I think Kyle's strongest argument was the fact that Polis himself has not made a great argument for the bridge. So I'd love to give you both the opportunity to make one last case for like someone listening to this who's like, I still don't, why this bridge? Mo, why?
Everybody has a lot of different needs, and this is an opportunity to not only be truly inclusive, but also bring some joy. It's hard. This world is very, very hard. And sometimes it is important for us to invest in things that at first glance may not always seem practical to these like really hard hitting topics in favor of long-term leisure and community building and placemaking and enrichment. Those don't always become priorities, and then people wonder why we're so tense. And this is an opportunity to prioritize our city's overall wellness.
Skylar?
I would echo that, and I would say that if you look at the entire Civic Center complex, you're anchored by two buildings. One, the Denver City County building, and two, the state capitol. These are institutions, and when you look at an institution, you say, well, this ought to be the way it always was. You look at the Elijah Meyer designed Capitol, and you say, well, this is a palace where this is living history. It must stay like this at all times. And to an extent, it must. I'm in the Capitol every day. I love that building. I've been working there for almost 20 years. It's the most important place on the planet to me, and I love walking through the Elijah Meyer designed Capitol. But the people who are in there aren't static. And in fact, we don't want lawmakers to be static. We elect people to the county building and to the legislature to be responsive to a changing world. And to insist that the environment where this happens isn't also responsive to that changing world, I think is an immature argument. We are preserving the Capitol. We are now increasing accessibility by way of a bridge. We are changing the space so it's more useful. And my point is relative to something I think you said earlier. The amount of opprobrium this has generated, how controversial this has been, the fact that the marquee news anchor did a very Nightline-style takedown of this, suggests to me this is going to be a universally beloved project in about 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
And people are going to say, wow, we love this bridge because it incites something in you. And anytime you have public infrastructure that makes you feel something, I spent a lot of time studying this. 10 times out of 10, it ends up being really great public infrastructure. And so I think to the listeners, I would say the conversation has been weak on both sides. I think the governor's office should be making a bigger case for how meaningful this is going to be and how this is a transformative project. And the news media should be telling folks there's a wealth of information out here about this. You can look at the design plans, you can look at the proposals, you can look at the votes of the various committees that are reviewing this, you can see the conversation, you can see that it's actually being thoughtfully done. This is not being done by fiat, this is not being done by executive order, this is being stakeholdered and also has been for many, many years. This didn't come out of nowhere.
Well, Mo and Skylar, thank you so much. This was a really interesting conversation.
Thank you for having me.
I'll see you at the bridge.
After my conversation with Kyle Clark last week about his argument against the bridge, we heard back from the governor's office, who sent us a list of other people who support the project and are not on the payroll. A spokesperson also said, quote, "It's disappointing to see the concerns around safety and accessibility dismissed so quickly, but we remain committed to the initiative to improve access to our historic capital and help re-energize this downtown area." That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell architect Daniel Liebeskin about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye-bye.